Story 1. I was the victim of a bear walker. In First Nations culture, a bear walker is someone who uses our sacred medicines for bad and not good. They can make someone very sick. Only a medicine man may reverse it, and it often comes as a gamble for the bear walker. Once reversed, they will suffer more than the one they made sick. I was 20 years old and very healthy. One night, I had a dream I was in a field and was picking wildflowers. From each direction, a tornado was coming at me. I woke up in a fevered sweat. That began 2 months of sheer misery. My doctor kept saying that I had a UTI. She would give me antibiotics, and it would subside for a while. I lost 40 pounds in 2 months. By the end of it, I couldn't walk, barely ate. Finally, my mom got tired of it. My sister bundled me up and we went to the hospital. Though an earlier ultrasound showed nothing, there was a huge growth on my ovary. A few days later, I had surgery, and when the doctor came to visit me, he said he had seen anything like it. It was a yellow, almost concrete-like substance around my ovary. I got better, but my mother remained unconvinced and scheduled an appointment with a medicine man. We gave him tobacco, and he smoked a pipe and sang a song. He said something along the lines of a woman seeing me at a powwow. She became interested in who I was because of my mother. She threw a piece of medicine in my path. I stepped on it, and it went up the right leg. He asked me if I still felt it. I said yes. He took a bone, what kind I am not sure, placed it in the area and began to suck. Weird, I know. He started vomiting. Yellow. Vomiting yellow. Like the doctor said, he gave me medicines and rituals for my mom to do. I went home that night and slept for 13 hours. My sickness never returned. Story 2. My sister was really into occult, Wiccan, witchcraft kind of stuff. I think she meant to be Wiccan, but a 13-year-old isn't incredibly discerning. Around the time she got into it, our house started to get incredibly creepy. We would see things move out of the corner of our eyes. Nobody wanted to be home alone. Nobody wanted to be in the living room at night. At first, we could blame it on the house and the land. Then we moved, not just houses, but continents. The weird stuff followed. All of it was always centered around my sister and her room. And it was always aggravated when we did serious cleaning, and especially when we moved. The height of it was when we were moving back to the US. We had 2 different flight groups. My mom and sister left 6 weeks before the rest of us to pick up the new house while my dad, brother, and I cleaned and packed at the old house. We heard thumping from my sister's room. The windows and doors would open and close on their own. Not possible from just the wind. And shadows would move wildly under the door pretty much every night, even with the blinds closed. I'm not sensitive, discerning of that kind of stuff, but it was plain as day, even to me. It was only after my sister finally moved out of our next house and we cleaned out her room that it all ended. Whatever it was tied to my sister and any sort of disorder, uncleanliness. Story 3. The weird thing about spirits and energy is that the more you look for it and try to contact things, the more likely you are to develop a form of sixth sense that kind of lets you feel the presence of them, especially if you know how to tune your senses and meditate. I've always been spiritually sensitive, and I learn very fast. I've always kind of had a sixth sense that has saved me a few times. But being spiritually sensitive means that I've always been able to kind of feel the presence of people and some living things if I focus on it. Sometimes I can close my eyes and guess where people are standing based on where I feel that they are. When I used to do this a lot, I actually got pretty good at it. But now and then, I can feel things that weren't there. And that always scared me, since I could tell what I was feeling wasn't a human or animal, and it just felt wrong. When I was very little, I used to have constant night terrors, and I would sleepwalk around my house and just stand in hallways ominously. It got bad to the point my dad had to teach me how to not dream through meditation. Once I learned how to do that, I stopped having night terrors, but I also stopped dreaming. Ever since then, I've very rarely had dreams, and when I do, I don't ever remember them, My dad blames my bad dreams on the fact that we have a strong spiritual side to our family and that they manifest in my dreams. On both sides, I come from strong blood, German warlocks, and Aztec blood. Last year, I got into sigils and glyphs and would just overall practice some minor occult things. I didn't see anything and I wasn't contacted by any entity, but I felt that the more I continued to dabble in those arts, the more attention I was calling to myself. I felt like I was becoming more visible to those entities. And now and then I would feel sort of a presence. Anytime I felt a presence, it would terrify me. I felt as though sometimes something powerful was watching or was just around when I practiced my sigils. This would lead me to instantly stop what I was doing and burn what I drew along with performing a rite to release the energy from it without manifesting anything. I stopped doing it since I started to feel things start to persist, and I started having bad dreams again, along with the fact that I started to accidentally astral project when I took naps. And since I didn't know what astral projecting was, when it first happened to me, I thought I died. I was in the middle of class, and I fell asleep. And I astral projected. I could see myself sleeping. I could see everyone around me, but I couldn't look around. I was just stuck, floating above my body, staring directly at myself from above. Other than just feeling the presence of things and astral projecting on accident, that's all I've ever really experienced. Story 4. My grandmother grew up in post-WW2 Nagasaki. Her family saw the bomb drop from their house in the mountains outside of the city. There was some mysticism stuff that was passed down in her family. Some of it was fortune-telling. By the time it made it to my grandmother's generation, they just started using a deck of 52-54 with jokers, playing cards. Before that, they used different types of cards or sticks that were like dice, something like that. She also did some readings of palms and the birthmarks that Asian babies have when they are first born. Anyway, she would always say that the mysticism stuff was fake and only for entertainment purposes, that it was bullshit, and that it was a mix of cold reading and random coincidences with the cards. She would only do readings if you agreed it was only for fun. What was weird was how accurate her readings were, despite her saying giving her disclaimer. My mom had an acquaintance that heard about this and asked to have a reading. My grandmother gave her little speech and then starts with the card drawing. After a few minutes, and looks up suddenly and says, "So, I guess you want me to talk about your cheating husband and what you are going to do about it, about how it is going to affect your daughter." The lady nearly fell out of her chair in shock. My grandmother had only just met this lady, and my mother never mentioned her before. My mom didn't even know that this woman had a kid. The woman confirmed all that and was taken aback about it. My grandmother gave her whole speech again, entertainment only, yada yada. Went on to tell her more details. The person the husband was cheating on her was someone the woman knew. The daughter would be fine. She predicted the sex of the next baby based on the birthmark of the older sibling on all my cousins. Asian babies have it right above their butt when they are born. It goes away when they get older. She was always correct for 20+ guesses. It's much debate among some of the other cousins. If she predicted it, she claims she couldn't remember every time she did it. But that too was for entertainment. The only time she didn't get it exactly right was because she said she couldn't tell because the birthmark was too faded, but it looked like both boy and girl. The cousin had twins, a boy and a girl. She said that this didn't count because it didn't look like twins. Someone in my family calculated the odds of her being right so many times, and it was high, even with a 50% of going either way. A few times, she has described things that happened in other people's dreams. I once visited her, and she asked why I kept dreaming about my teeth falling out of my mouth, and why was it reoccurring. I didn't tell anyone about that. She just kinda smiled and told me not to worry about that and just to take care of my teeth. She would read palms and tell people about their luck, lifelines, and how many kids they would have. She was really sad, and the lady asked why. Again, this is only entertainment. She saw that the lady would have 5 children, but 2 miscarriages. She even saw the order that it happened in. And the woman did have 5 kids, with the miscarriages in the order my grandma saw. Some of the time, my grandmother would make predictions or say that she couldn't read the fortune, or that it was too uncertain. But the times she has gotten it right have been accurate. If you ask her how or why, she still just says it's for entertainment and is just nonsense and random. She wanted to teach my mom and sister, but my mom is a hardcore Christian and doesn't want to learn. My grandmother only wants to teach the females in the family. I am really sad to say that this weird, usual, just for entertainment thing she does will die with her. Story 5. When I was a young kid, me and my friends were big into ghosts, the paranormal, the occult, or anything else creepy. I was a self-identifying witch, and we would often go ghost hunting in local places. We even came up with a theory that our school used to be an ancient, cursed burial ground. The thing we loved most was Ouija boards, which is where this story begins. One day, my friend comes up to me and tells me about an experience he had. He had made a makeshift Ouija board and used it on his school bus. He had contacted a ghost that called itself A, and it was trying to warn us about something. I and my other friend were curious and wanted to know more. I had recently gotten an actual Ouija board for Christmas, and I suggested that we should have a proper session at my house. So we all come over one day and set things up. Salt circle, candles, and lavender as a substitute for sage. We start the session, and things go wrong immediately. The board is saying weird and cryptic things, so we ask its name. The ghost goes by T. We ask what it is, and it just says proxy. A quick Google search of the word made us realize that T was a proxy for something a lot darker. Us being kids, we thought it was the Ouija board demon, whose name started with a Z, but now I'm a little unsure exactly what it was proxying for. Suddenly, we heard a loud noise coming from the closet. My friends went over to look, and I stayed back to not take my fingers off the planchette and accidentally end the session without saying goodbye. They both screamed and ran out. They both claimed they saw a long, black, shadowy thing with tiny, white eyes, curled up in the fetal position on the closet floor. We all freak out and end the session right there. I knew we had holy water in the other room, so we went to go get it. While we do, we hear another noise. We rush back and found that the planchette, which we had taken off the board, was back on the board by itself, and all our other items were scattered around the board. We blessed the board right then and there. We talked to our ghosts a few more times, both T and A. We figured out that A comes in darkness and T comes in light. So if we wanted to talk to one or the other, we'd just turn the lights on and off. But here's the freaky part. T told my friends that he wanted to drain them of their essence and that he was connected to their families. A told us that he was also connected, but was there to protect them. We saw the black shadow figure a few more times, most often outside our windows, watching from the street. We thought it was T. We also saw a white figure with black eyes a few times, which we thought was A. I also could not go into the basement closet without getting a terrible sense. Eventually, we get the house smudged and the sighting stopped completely. Now I'm a proper Wiccan and have resolved to myself to never use an Ouija board again. Story 6. They say that astral project, out-of-body experiences, leave your body an empty vessel for evil spirits, demons, to more easily take refuge. I almost had sleep paralysis once. It happened last year, November, I think. I was sleeping in my room, and I could swear I felt footsteps towards my bed. It was about 4 a.m. I tried rationalizing, thinking my brother sneaked into my room to scare me. I just bought my house in May 2019, and my brother rents a room, but have never felt scared or felt some presence there. So I slightly opened my eyes to the side of my bed, and nothing. Weird. Okay. I go back to bed, and I felt the footsteps again. When I say felt, it's not that I heard them, but I could feel the sound, if that makes sense. 2. I turn and lay on my back, slightly leaning towards the side of my bed. I slightly open my eyes, pretending to be asleep, but still don't see anything. Then I still feel like I should just sit up and inspect my room. Maybe my brother thought I was awake, so he dropped to the floor and hid at the side of my bed. Again, why would my brother be in my room at 4 a.m. to scare me? So I try to open my eyes all the way, but I can't. I tried to rationalize further and told myself I don't care this much. If he wants to scare me, let him. So I was going to roll onto my side and have my back face him. But then I couldn't roll over. My muscles felt tight. People say when they experience sleep paralysis, they feel pressure on their chest, and if someone was on them, associated with troubled breathing. I didn't feel it. The pressure felt like it was to the side of my bed. It felt like the footsteps. Again, I never actually heard footsteps. I only felt them. I don't think I panicked or was stressed. I was paralyzed, but I wasn't stricken with fright. I was being too rational, and I thought to myself at that moment, am I in paralysis right now? How is that possible? I was consciously awake and moving this whole time. So I said enough. While still laying on my back, I took a giant, large breath in, and in that breath, I felt relief. During the breath, I proceeded to imagine the space above my chest like a magnet. And my limbs were also magnets attracted to the middle. And I sat up straight, knees to chest, and my arms were hugging myself. I didn't feel fear, but a mild relief, like it was all just my mind. I got up, took a piss, and went back to bed. Not gonna lie, I did throw a quick shout-out improper prayer to God, Jesus Christ, and just said, I know you are watching this house. I am not a super religious person, but I do believe in God. My parents are very religious, and we prayed for the house when I moved in. As I said, I never experienced anything paranormal in my house, and to this day, I don't fear being in my house alone. Just that one weird moment. Story 7, I've always had classic sleep paralysis, but this is some advanced sleep paralysis, LOL. I was asleep in bed when I was awakened by the end of my comforter floating in the air and something or someone floating above it. I was clutching the top of my comforter with my hands, trying to cover my face, trying to hide from whatever was there, but I couldn't pull it up. I'm positive my eyes were shut, but I could still see my entire room. Not my room in a dream, but my room as I left it when I went to sleep. I was awake and able to see through my shut eyes. I kept trying to kick my comforter down with my feet, but couldn't reach it, even though it was definitely within reach. And even though my comforter was blowing, I felt no wind. It felt like I couldn't look up high enough to see whatever being was haunting me, but I could see enough from my peripheral views that something was there. I kept trying to shake away the moment, like waking yourself up from a dream, but it wasn't a dream, and it felt different from normal sleep paralysis. I just stayed watching my comforter blow for a good minute or two before it stopped. When my comforter settled, the being left, and my eyes were very clearly open. I was more convinced that it was just a vivid dream. Everyone looked just as it had, minus the floating comforter and being. I tugged the comforter over my head. Before I could relax, I felt someone standing next to my bed with their hand on my comforter, touching my arm, then moving to lift the comforter. I recognized it was not like the pressure of a sleep paralysis demon. It was legit, something very real and physical there. Ask someone to touch your arm. Take in the feel of their touch and how you can feel their presence next to you. It was like that. I immediately understood it was serious because I was not asleep. I was more certain now than before that I was completely awake, and I nearly screamed out loud when I jumped away and I felt it leave. I was in complete disbelief. Like, damn, that shit was right there. That was the most intense sleep paralysis type thing I've ever felt. And I've heard a voice once. I've had something wrap its arms around me while I was laying on my side and the sun was out. But this shit, I'm looking over my shoulder typing this. Before, it just felt like phantoms passing by. That thing felt like it came to see me. Story 8. I still have no explanation for this, so may as well put it here. There was an incident that happened with my aunt in the summer of 2013. Some of my family decided to have a sleepover at my uncle's house on Christmas Eve, so it was me, my family, my cousins and their parents, and 2 more of my aunts staying over. We were all awake well past midnight, and my mom called me to the room she was sharing with 2 of my aunts. One was her sister and the other her brother's wife. My uncle's wife had gone to sleep already, and while I was talking with my mom and my aunt, she suddenly sat bolt upright, eyes wide, staring at nothing. She didn't respond to any one of us asking if she was all right, and after a few minutes, she finally looked around at the 3 of us in the room. She hadn't blinked at all during that time. Her eyes were still wide, and she started shouting things at us that no one could understand at the moment, or even after it. Her body was also stock still, held the same way that it was when she first sat up. My mom sent me out of the room to call my uncles, then told me to go to the room where my brothers and cousins were, and wait there afterward. We could all hear my uncles praying over her, shouting even louder than she was, and she responded with a long, painful screaming. It all eventually died out after close to 20 minutes. Everyone who was there agrees that she must have been possessed that night, and even though I'm not a religious person, I still can't find a reason to say otherwise. Story 9. I rented a house a few years back and never believed in paranormal or any sort of spirits, etc. My first week in the house was finding a few creaks here and there, but nothing major. I very soon started to feel like I was being watched or just a presence in general. In the 3rd week, I started waking up in the middle of the night with large scratches, almost cuts going the length of my arm. From my wrist to my armpit, 3 scratches are all parallel, always on my right arm. I didn't think much of it. One night I hear a loud bang, go to the back and notice my back door was open. Okay, no worries, I shut and locked the door with a deadbolt. The next morning I woke up and the door is wide open, but the freaky part of the deadbolt is still in the locked position, as well as the knob. It starts to freak me out now. I start telling a person I work with about this stuff. He told me his sister was a Native American shaman priestess, whatever it was, and she would come stage bless my house if I wanted. The next week she came over with, I believe was called sweetgrass and sage. She burned the sage while walking around and told me can feel a presence in the house. She hung the sweetgrass over my bed, and ever since I haven't had anything strange happen. Very strange.
Thanks for watching. Don't leave before leaving a like to this video. Also hit the subscribe button to support my work. And as always, have a horrific nightmare, my dear.